Hello and welcome to Cable Plus Property, the #1 online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed property. My name is Oiza. At Cable Plus Property, our aim is to ensure that all Nigerians and non-Nigerians have at the tip of their finger everything they need to know about land acquisition, land procurement, building construction, planning, documentation, and registration of landed properties. We provide you with everything you need to get your property registered and also to obtain your planning permit from the government agency. In this video, I'll be speaking with an erudite scholar, an architect of the Department of Architecture, Yaba College of Technology, architect Dr. Ogunnaike. This is Cable Plus Property. It's good to have you, sir.
Okay.
Why did you choose to read architecture and become an architect?
Well, architecture for me is a passion, and most early architects actually took to architecture from passion. Either the desire to contribute to the environment or your passion for drawing or design contributes greatly to who becomes architects in those days. I was moved. I started from civil engineering, the fact, and from civil engineering, I got to know that architect is the head of the team. And I felt, well, why should I be in civil engineering class? So I got admission, I pursued my dream, and I went straight for architecture.
What are the roles of an architect? Who is an architect? What do they do?
Well, that's a big question. The architect is the head of the team, of the building team, first and foremost. But to be an architect, you need to be first an artist. An artist, a scientist, and a master builder. What do I mean by that? The artist in architecture enables you to conceive ideas, to visualize things that does not exist. The scientist in it is the fact that you need to study building sciences and environmental sciences, like so many things like physics, structures, planning, including landscape. All those three combined, that's artist, scientist, and environmentalist, will partly make you an architect. The greatest job of an architect is that of a master builder. And what do I mean by master builder? The master builder is that person that combines all these aspects together and make what we call a design. A design is not a drawing. Most people tend to believe designs are just some few sheets of paper, some strokes of sticks on paper. No. A design is a conglomeration of many ideas put or represented with lines. Every line, every stroke an architect does is actually a representation of something. So a good designer, a good architect is actually combining all the trainings in artistry or artwork, in sciences, and in environmental sciences. So to say, what I mean, landscape, planning, you combine everything together to make what we call an architect. Is a full-baked profession.
So does that mean if you are not an artist, you cannot be an architect? You have to be an artist to be an architect?
No. We will train you to first be an artist. We start when you are in school. We teach you visual communication. We teach you graphic communication. We bring out the artist in you. In every person has some little talent inside. We bring out the talent in you. We teach you, just like we're teaching children, how to be an artist. How you write A, B, C, D. It is artistic in itself. So we teach you first. So you learn, we bring out the art in you. The art, everybody has that instinct. We bring out the art in you. Then we teach you how to express those things. That is what makes you an architect. But again, it is not only the art part that makes the architect. There is scientific part too. You need to understand the forces of nature. Forces of nature like structures, like climatology. You understand that? So all those combined makes what we call an architect.
So what is architecture in itself?
Wow. Architecture is a profession recognized by law in Nigeria. There is a Decree 10 formulated in 1969 that sets the standard, what is called an architect. It's an art and science of designing and erecting buildings. That is what the Acon Decree 10 of 1969 says. That decree has been amended in 1990, Decree 43 of 1990, to include maintenance. Maybe when we get to a discussion on maintenance, because there is a bit of a rough road around maintenance, there are a lot of other professions moving into maintenance too. But architecture by the Decree 10 of 1969 defines who an architect are, what architecture is in Nigeria. It is regulated by law. Not everybody can come in and say, I'm an architect.
Because I can draw.
Yes, it doesn't make you an architect. Because it is not drawing, it is the total skill that makes you an architect. And it takes at least 6 years in university to be an architect. If you go through Polytechnic, you may spend up to 8 years to be an architect. So it's not a small journey, it's not a short journey, no.
You mentioned earlier that an architect is the head of the construction team.
Very right.
What makes an architect the head of a construction team? I mean, there sure are other professionals.
Yes. Well, the construction team consists of about 6 professionals, namely the architect, the engineer, the quantity surveyor, the urban and regional planner, the land surveyor. Those 6 mix. But you can't know my dream more than the person who dreams it. You can't tell me a story of I dreamt of something, no matter how much you say it. The person who conceives the idea knows. And again, like I tell you, every stroke in an architect design means something. There is no way, no matter how much we specify, if I have a volume, 200 pages of description, which we call specification, you can't get everything. So the architect knows his dream, it translates his dream. If I now tell you my story, for you to get it fully, you must be in the know. There is this class of discussion lately, we call it project management, and we are saying, well, anybody can edit it. But most people argue about that you can't know the dream more than the dreamer. You can't know the dreamer. If I'm dreaming of constructing a house, I'm starting from the client's brief, from afar, before anybody knows it. I call in the engineer to do the engineering part. He doesn't know every bit of the building. You understand that? He doesn't know. I call it the quantity surveyor, who will tell me the costs. He can't know what I mean, why I'm even putting a particular window. Because the totality of a design is not about what you just see on paper. Before prescribing this window, the architect must have thought about the positioning, the height, the size of the building, that is, how much light do I want in this particular room. Sincerely speaking, a quantity surveyor will not know that.
What of the builder?
Well, that's a real good one. You see, in Nigeria, the word builder is being used differently and so much often. I happen to have the opportunity of studying in the UK. We don't have the word builder. What we have is building surveyor. You understand that? Building surveyor, that's what they call them. Much of job of builder is working for the contractor, the building contractor. The builders are supposed to be employed by the building contractors, working for the building contractors. So if you have a builder as very early in the project, you gain one or two things. When you are doing the maintenance, it's a part of the building, but it's part of the decision of the work. He knows so many things about the work. He is better for the management of the building after the building has been constructed. That is one part. We call it facility management. But in the design, what does it do? In fact, when I named the 6 professions, I deliberately omitted the builder. I cited 6. I did not put builder into it, either a builder or this. But I'm not saying that builders are not important. Far from it. They are very important in the building delivery. They are part of the contractor's team, the people who will actually execute. You see, building or construction has two parts: the design team, the construction team. The design team includes the architect as the head. The construction team includes the architect too. But the builder is not part of the design team. So the builders are, I'm using the Nigerian way of saying it, builders. Even in US, they hardly use the word builders in US too. I've been there and I know they don't use the word builder. They have estimators that they use in quantifying most of the building items. In some other countries, it is the engineer they call builders. In Russia, in Romania, they use the word engineer. Either you call it building engineer, and it's part of that engineer we are talking about, or building surveyor. But in Nigeria, we call them building technologists or builders. In fact, they don't really, to me, have a proper definition. Nigerians just of building. Is it building technologists, building engineers, or building surveyors? So that is my take on that. Without any prejudice to building profession, but they are very respectable. It is a very noble profession. It's a good profession. They understand what building is all about. They are good in the contractor's team. I'm stating that for emphasis. They are out to carry out. Let me put it simply. If somebody wants to build a house, if you permit me to explain it a little bit, if somebody wants to build a house, the architect will not go there and carry mud or carry shovel. He gives it to a person, a contractor or whatever. The contractor in his workforce must have a builder who understands what it takes to even make a concrete. I can recommend 124 concrete, 136 concrete. The contractor who has a builder right in there and knowing the specific of that project now, the weight, the load, can advise me. Even the contractor can say, well, architect, we can use 1, 2.5, 5. That's the mix, the concrete mix. And he will tell me, if you use this additive, probably 1 or 2 additives we add to this additive, we redefine the contract, which is allowed in the contract. Then it's okay. So you can see the role of the builder in that sense.
Okay, you mentioned and explained other professionals,
Okay.
but you didn't talk about the Draughtsman, the welder, the electrician,
Wow.
and we see them on site.
Well, again, depending on the form of contract you are doing, all those you said, the draftsman is a different one. The draftsman is an employee of the architect, except if he opts out. Let me talk about the training of draftsmen. Draftsmen don't have formal training. All they do is to learn to trace drawings architects give them. You can trace drawing. If somebody learns draftsmanship for 2 years, compare it to somebody who has studied architecture for 7 years at the university, and somebody who learns drafting for 2 years. Who would you entrust your building to? Somebody who learned not just to draw some lines within 2 years, and somebody who spent 6 to 7 years learning, designing, learning structures, learning climatology, learning environmental forces, factors, so many other things. I tell you, if I'm not an architect, I won't give my job to a draftsman, sincerely speaking. So a draftsman is supposed to be working under the architect. Normally, I've done the job, I've done my design, I put it on the floor. Mr. Draftsman, go and trace it. But you see, in Nigeria, because of shortcut, a draftsman who works with an architect will take that drawing and sell to Mr. A or Mr. B in Nigeria. That look here, this work is a good job, and he takes it out. The man does not know. In fact, either the design fits to the man's requirement. It's not the draftsman's work. He will force it on you. He will just tell you, look here, I did this one for Mr. A, and it's at Oyinbo, it's at Lekki, it's at this place. It's good enough for you too. And then you say, oh, okay. The job or the design may not meet your requirements either. And that is why you have some buildings half done. It gives you some building design that does not fulfill your ambition. So I'm just trying to explain the artisan side, the role of the draftsman. The others, iron bender, yes, all those stuff, they are in the contracting teams. They are artisans. They are tradesmen. Tradesmen are trained. The ones that are trained go to technical colleges. Most tradesmen in Nigeria even lack training. That is one of the problems we are having. They learn from Babarisi, Mr. X on site. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong in apprenticeship, but the fact is that most of them do not even stay enough to know about the work. They just learn some bit of how to do the iron, bind it together, and pump, they move on. I am now an iron bender. I am now this. So apply to the bricklayers too. But basically, they are artisans in the building industry. Every profession has a level, in fact, 3 levels. The lowest level, you have the artisans. The middle level, you have the technicians. And the higher level, you have the professionals. Every profession. Not only architecture, not only building team, building profession. Every profession, we have those levels. The lowest level are the artisans level. We have the iron bender, that's welder. We have the carpenters. We have the mason or bricklayers. You understand? But the draftsman is specifically different because he works directly under the architect.
So what is, for the sake of the audience, what is the distinct difference between the draftsman and the architect?
Like I said earlier, the draftsman is an employee most often of the architect. They are not really recognized by law. They have a body at a particular time regulating them that these are draftsmen in Nigeria. They have an association. You understand? Association where the association of some draftsmen. Let's look at the training. Is there a formal school that they train draftsmen in Nigeria? There's no school. There is no formal school of draftsmanship. No. So what does that mean? It means the draftsmen learn as apprentice from one person or the other. If you're talking about nursing, you know, school of nursing are all over there. If you're talking of radiographers, school of radiography is there. But there is no school of draftsmanship. So it tells us that draftsmen are really not schooled. They learn, it is a pure apprentice. And they learn usually under an architect, or under a draftsman, and they come to work in an architect's office. But over time, due to corruption, due to low economy, I don't know what I should use the word, due to Nigerian situation or Nigerian factor, the draftsmen will say they want to undertake building construction. With what knowledge? The knowledge of tracing some drawings is not enough for a draftsman to say it's taking an architect's job. No.
Now, sir, with your explanation so far, you said the architect is the lead of the team.
Exactly.
Does that mean the architect is responsible for building collapse?
Wow. What leads to building collapse? Let's first. Architect is the head of the team, but what leads to building collapse? Usually, when you're talking about building collapse, we are talking about structural failures. You understand now? Who is responsible for structural design? The architect is not responsible for structural design. There is an engineer responsible for structural design. So why do you have building failure, collapse? We have it either poor design or poor workmanship. Oh, poor specification. Poor design is either the engineer did not do a proper design or did not get a proper briefing before he designs. So, or the contractor, they have a design for 2-story structure. Before you know it, the contractor is erecting 4 stories. Automatically, the load cannot stand. It's designed for 2-story, and a contractor goes ahead and, no, you can take it. We did something like that somewhere. And he goes ahead and builds 3 or 4 stories. So the structure will definitely fail. The other one is, if you engage an unqualified engineer to do your structures, you are mostly likely going to have either over design or under design. That is the second one. The third case is when you employ the wrong contractor. I will tell you where the architect is liable. The contractor may be trying to shortcut. You have in the design 16 mm, 20 mm. He decides to go for 12 mm. He wants to make money, extra profit. Well, the building will collapse. You understand that? If you collapse because you are not following the right thing, you don't follow the right specification, you don't follow the right design. So where do architects come in this instance? If in the appointment of the contractor, the architect compromised, is then liable. If I want to do a job for you, and because I know Mr. X or Mr. Y, and I decided not to follow or not to do the due diligence, you understand that? Or maybe for whatever personal reason I choose, then the building collapses, then I'm liable. I'm not directly liable, but by law, I may be liable. I have a duty of reasonable care. That is what I owe the client as an architect. It's under a lot of thoughts. You owe your client a duty of reasonable care. So you may be liable, but directly, even contractually, you are not involved in the project. In the project construction, the architect assumes another role. He is now supervisor representing the client's interest. It is the contractor. The contractor and the client signs that building contract. The architect is not part of it. Do you get it? It's the contractor and the client that form that building contract. The architect acts in that respect. That's contract level, that's post-contract, contract and post-contract level. He acts strictly as an agent of the client. So it is not really architect's fault when you see building collapses. Maybe due to 1 or 2 things, the architect, they missed along the way. You understand? Or the contractor wants to make too much money, unjustified profit.
Okay. How can building collapse be avoided, especially in this present economic situation?
Well, it can be avoided if we try to do the right thing, employing the right professionals into the job, employing the right artisans into the job, and follow the guidelines. The guidelines by the building code, it's quite explicit, it's clear. The National Building Code explains. In fact, before the National Building Code, we have the building regulations. The building regulations specify some little things, but the National Building Code even specifies the minimum safety standards for all these things. And it is not made up by the architects alone. By all the 6 professionals I named earlier, the engineers, the quantity surveyor. So if we follow those things and we follow up with control, when I say follow is control this time around, I know Lagos State is doing well on that area. They have a body called LabSCA that will go and keep on checking on the building. They will even test the reinforcement at their standard. If LabSCA continues at that, doing that, the building collapse will be very minimal. Checking everything at different stages. At this level, we are checking the floor. At this level, we are checking. Then I tell you, the building collapse will be... First, they have to get approval. Most of the buildings that collapses may not even get the right approval in the first instance. Some will get approval for 2-story structure. They will go and build 3-story structures. All the drawings they submitted were two levels, ground floor, first floor. But they went on and built 3 stories. And they go to site. So when you have such problems, I'm still going back to the control issue. The control is important. If we can control the professionals to do good job, we control the contractor to ensure that the contractors are doing the right thing, the building collapse will be very minimal, very, minimal.
You mentioned building codes. Who prepares the codes and what is it meant for?
Well, building code was actually done by the federal government. It's a council of works and urban development. They started it. And the preparation is done by the 6 profession again, which I referred to. The eggheads of all those professions sat at different times and prepare a policy paper that, okay, for this thing, this is what we need. The building code covers from pre-design, design, contract, and post-contract. So it contains almost all guidelines. It tells you what buildings are this. Even buildings are grouped into different A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So many. And they have subgroups equally. And it sets all the conditions for each one. For A, for B, for C, how they should be. I'm talking about architecture. For other professions, it will tell you A, B, C, what they're supposed to do. But for architecture, classification, the use classification is there into groups A, B, C, D, F, G, H, up to H, I think. So it is very clear.
So it is meant to regulate the activities of the profession.
It's as a result of collapse, short practices in the building industry, and leading to so many other things. You understand? So the National Council of Works and Urban Development have to resort to that to stop or to reduce the damage to the urban to our urban cities. Yeah.
It is expensive for an individual to build their own homes.
Okay.
How do you think the government can help?
Well, the word expensive depends on what you mean. Housing or
an average person in Nigeria finds building a home expensive.
Well, that's Nigerian perspective. In most countries, you don't need to build homes. In Germany, for instance, home ownership is very, very low. People rent. You see, home ownership has 2 levels. Housing has 2 levels. Do you want to rent a home or do you want to own a home? In some countries in Europe, it is cheaper and better to rent homes. You don't bother building. In some countries, it is good to build your home. In UK and some other countries, you don't even build your home. You buy the homes. There are specialized bodies that will build, building associations, and they will build. We are doing something similar by selling land to some people. They will not build estates. That is what is done in UK. Individuals, it may be expensive. If I want to do farming, let me use farming as an example. I'm cultivating this small area, and the other one is I'm cultivating mechanized, a very large one. The cost of production of this small one will be very high compared to if I have a large area. So that may explain. The other thing is that if we want to encourage people to build houses individually, do we have the wherewithal? Do we have trained artisans? Like we said again, do you have trained artisans to do it? At the end of the day, the artisans will keep on talking here and there. What government can do, back to your question, is probably leverage on the tax. You reduce some of the tax, because most of the materials we use in Nigeria are imported. The cement is imported, even though we have Dangote that is doing, but at the end of the day, even imported ones comes cheaper. The cost of cement is very high. So if government can do something to reduce the cost of cement, what else do we do in construction? Glass is imported. We do have working glass industry. Aluminium, do we have aluminium industry? So all those things makes the cost of building. So government can do that one. And if the will is there to reduce the cost of housing, if the will is there, we have deficit, over 20 million housing deficit. Everybody knows that. But if the government will is there, the political will is there, they will reduce taxes on those things and allow it inside or encourage the production of building materials, then the cost will come down.
The cost of building materials is very high, like you rightly said. Are there alternative construction materials that can be used?
Yeah. The alternatives are not very developed. That's the problem. The alternative materials you want to use, because of our low technology, may not be very appropriate for the cities. May not be appropriate for the cities. What do I mean by that? Mud houses will not be appropriate in cities. You understand that? But if you want to build mud houses, you go to the village. Well, it's cheap. You can do that. But how do you want to have a mud house? It's not aesthetically pleasant and it cannot last. So, the alternative materials in cities, I still don't see it. I still don't see any alternative.
Mud houses do not last.
They do not last. They are perishable. They cannot withstand rain, water. Let me explain to you. Do you see mud houses lasting more than 50 years? Nah, I doubt it. They not even last up to that.
How about red brick houses?
Well, red brick, if they are well burnt, will last longer. Yeah. But if they are well treated, will last longer.
What advice can you give to the viewer watching this video on how to maintain their buildings?
Well, if the design is done very well at the onset, you have low maintenance cost. If the design is not done very well, if you compromise at the design stage, you are going to have high maintenance costs. What do I mean? If you try to do a cheap foundation, for instance, let's say you are building in a swamp area, even not swamp, a normal land, you try to do it. No, I can manage it with this foundation. Mr. X or Mr. Y did it. And you go ahead and do a shoddy foundation. You have cracks later on. Cost of repairing those cracks will be a big problem. Do you understand? If will not even lead to underpinning. You understand? So if you employ the right engineer, the right people, and do the correct foundation, you will likely not have any problem. I'm not saying you will still have problem, but you will likely not have any problem. So if you use the right people, you will get low maintenance cost. Low maintenance. It's just easy. I say one fridge on the street, I want to buy it, I see another one there. This one is Taiwan. This one is probably made in UK or made in another place. You understand? There is a higher likelihood that the one from Germany or UK will last longer than the one that was done on the sea. You understand? That's not really branded. Yeah, I don't want to use the word Taiwan. That is not branded. Somebody just assembled some farm on the sea, bring it to Nigeria. But the other one is branded with a name, either from UK, US, or China. The company has a name, they have integrity. So if you use such product, most likely you are going to get value. But the unbranded one, the man has no identity. If it doesn't work, so be it.
So for someone who has probably builded something and made a mistake in building, what do you think is the way out?
Well, the way out first and foremost is that you will have higher maintenance costs if you have not done the right thing at the beginning. You have higher maintenance cost. Then when you want to do your maintenance work, call a good builder. I use them a lot for facilities management. Call a good builder. They know what to do. They can advise you on, okay, this plaster is cracking. It's not a design work. Plaster is cracking. Well, as a good builder, I can tell you what you can use to stop that plastering defect. You understand? There's a crack work there. Oh, maybe it's a mix. Let's use this mix, and that does it.
How can a person become an architect?
I explained earlier, but I will say it again. To be an architect is not a very easy task. It's one of the difficult professions in this country, even in the world, so to say. It takes at least about 6 years if you go to the university after your jump. You first do 4 years, you go out 1 year, then do your youth corps or just stay out 1 year, go back to university, do 3 years. So you have 6 years in university. If you pass through the polytechnic level, you spend about 4 years in the polytechnic, 2 years, 1 year, 2 years, another 2 years, right? I'm making 4 years of studies. I'm not talking of the 1 year IT. Then you now read for what we call professional practice exam. No, you read for exam 1 or 2, NIA exam 1 and 2. The NIA 1 and 2 will train you to write certain exams, which they feel is deficient, and those papers will now make you the level. You understand that? They make you the level of master's degree. They have what you call NIA Finals 1, NIA Finals 2. When you have NIA Finals 2, you are deemed to be equivalent to a master's degree holder. You understand that? After it takes you about 3 years after HND to clear those papers. After you have finished your 6 years university or NIA Finals 2, you need additional 2 years again before you can write your professional exams.
Wow.
So it takes almost 10 years to be an architect. The 2 years, you do it as tutelage or peer pupillage under an architect, where you are tested. Your logbook you must have had 6 months of design, 6 months of pre-design, design and construction experience. And a registered architect will check everything you are doing at different times. It is after that logbook certification that you are eligible to write the professional practice exam. It is after that one you do that one, and then if you pass the 4 papers, then they will now admit you as a chartered architect or a member of the institute.
And you can start
you can practice.
taking projects.
Yes. The moment you finish university, you can work as an architect. We call you provisional architects.
Okay.
Provisional architects. Some architects will not even register. They or could not pass the professional practice exam. So they are still provisional architects because they have 6 years degrees in architecture, 6 years of study in architecture. They have done HND, they have done NIA Finals 1 or Finals 2. They are practicing as architects, but they are not principals. They are not supposed to start a firm. You understand? They are not principals. But to be a principal, you need to be a chartered architect, and that means you must have passed the NIA examination.
We'd like you to say something about this Cable Plus property endeavor, the show.
Well, I say it as a project enlightening so that the mass, the public, will know who to consult in the nearest future. And if we keep on doing it, we will enlighten the public, engaging the right professionals in doing the right work. And I think it's a laudable project, so keep it up.
Thank you very much, sir. It was great talking to you.
Same here.
Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Cable Plus Property. Also, follow us on Instagram at Cable Plus Property and like our Facebook page at Cable Plus Property. Till we come your way again, this is Cable Plus Property.